Rich and Ryan welcome you to the RNR Dust Stuff podcast.
Welcome back, dear listener. You're here with Ryan and Rich for more of our doing stuff thing. Ryan, I'm telling you, it's always busy around here. We always got stuff we're doing, and I think we're back on track talking about some retro computing this episode.
Which is awesome. I love my retro computing. There's a lot of stuff going on here, and I want to hear about the project that you were knee deep into. It sounds like you might have had some problems.
I did, and I think you're talking about Salvation Army 64.
I am.
I have started naming all my computers something 64 relative to where they came from, like TSA 64, you know.
I like it. I like it.
TSA 64 was out of the box. Beautiful. Worked great.
Yes.
Well, my luck finally ran out. I busted open the Salvation Army 64, and it was such a mess, folks. There was one point I'm recording that I'm like, what are all these dots on these chips? And I think they're all black. So I sent some to Ryan, and Ryan's like, yeah, dude, those aren't all black dots. There's red dots too.
These are all red dots. I don't know if someone was troubleshooting it and they were putting dots on the ones that they thought were good or bad or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, there were definitely dots on those chips.
It worked out really well, though. In the sense of some of my acquire items, I got the Retro Chip Tester Pro 2, and it had just shown up like the week before. And I tested it on a bad chip that I'd had, and of course it didn't work. And so I then looked at this motherboard, and of course only one, the VIC-20 or the VIC-2 chip, VIC-2 I think it's called, was the only socketed chip. So I was able to pop it out. I was able to test it. It was fine. And then I had to go watch videos, and I had to go read stuff, and I had to go watch more videos. And then I went back to the bench, and I found out its voltage is a little all over the place. Some of the places you're supposed to pick up 12 volts DC.
Nice.
1.3, 1.4. Some of the places I'm supposed to get 5 volts. Great, no problems. You know what I mean? I was able to pick up the place. So it's a little funky all over the board. It really, I just popped in. It is one of my most viewed videos right now on YouTube. And by the way, a lot of great discussion in the comments. Oh, I got dislikes on it. People disliked my video. I got dislikes, Ryan.
We can't please everybody all the time. I don't know
why. I mean, it's interesting. I'm always interested when I get dislikes. What were they disliking? What didn't they like? I wish there was a submit form that they could say, I disliked that you don't know what you're doing, or I disliked that you put your probe here and you could have blown the board up. See, those are good things I want to know, right?
More the latter than the first, but yes.
Yes, more of the latter. The constructive comments are always really nice, and that's what I have, a lot of really great engagement on here. So I bought a socket set for the Commodore 64 that just came in, and I got that Hakko desoldering iron that you brought to me and said, dude, you need to buy this. And you were really right, because I did desolder one of the chips to test the PLA. Was it the PLA or the SID? I think I tested the PLA. And so I desoldered the PLA, passed just fine. So I'm going to be going on a desoldering spree, and I am going to desolder everywhere I'm going to put a socket in. And every time I desolder, I'm going to be able to test that chip independently away from the board with the Chip Tester Pro.
Oh, that's good.
And I don't know. I think it's in the memory. Someone else said something about the red dots down in the memory area. So I'm going to learn a lot on this board. And this board, it freaked me out. I was trying to do things. I learned that I really don't have a dead test cartridge. They mentioned there is a whole nother cartridge that's the dead test cartridge. You know, I have that cartridge with all the harness for testing. Yeah. That's the Diag kit. There's another cartridge they sell that you just plug in, and it bypasses a lot of the stuff that it needs to boot so you can test right from the cartridge port. Don't know how it works. I got to pick one up, but I'll pick one up eventually. This is actually going to become a big resoldering project.
Yeah.
And you saw that funky stuff on the back. where there was junk on the back of the board, which I think is just a bunch of leftover solder. I don't know. I had
Could
some
be.
traces that did not tone out. I lost connectivity on like 2 to 4 traces. So I'll be doing some bodging, which I learned
Nice.
from you how to bodge. I'll be doing some bodging. This board
Nice.
is really going to put me through the paces, but I'm telling you,
Good.
Ryan, it's going to be like 8 episodes. I mean, this is not a one and done project. This thing is going to be a lot of work. But at first I was really kind of sad. And then I was like, oh no. I remember, I think I called and told you I was just going to keep it as a donor board.
You were, right. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So now it's not a donor board. Now it's going to become a project. And it still may end up being a donor board.
It could be.
I'm going to try everything to resurrect this board, just like you resurrected that 500 plus. I'm going to do whatever I can to try and get there, and it'll improve my skills as I go through that process.
You'll know how a lot of these are laid out. Since you're very into the C64 land, that gives you things like, oh, I've seen that before. Oh, I've seen that before. Oh, or if someone's at some meetup going, this thing does that. Oh, yeah. Did you look at this? And it's going to help you out quite a bit because you've been there, done that, and there's only so many people out there that have that skill set.
Yeah,
there really are.
I don't know. It's going to be a mess. It is going to be worth it. I will get a link to this and drop it in our show notes, just because it is. If you want to follow along on a saga of a boy learning to do electronics, then this would be the saga to follow.
Love it. We're just large children playing with our toys from our youth.
I know. So yes, I will be bugging you about chip colors at one point as I get these things off and I start looking at what those colors are and I see how they're testing. I think that'll help us understand what that color coding was. Whoever worked on this obviously did a bunch of stuff and then took it to Salvation Army when they were done and dropped it off for me to get.
Yeah, just take a picture, I can circle them and write little things in there. It's like, oh, this one's red, this one's black, whatever. And I'll be able to happily send that back to you. But yeah, let's get this. I want to understand. I want to know what's wrong with it. I don't know is it really just something dumb that you're missing some traces, you're some continuity, or that solder blob, was it bridging a whole bunch of things and causing other grief too? And it's probably a little bit of a lot.
I like that answer. It's a little bit of a lot. And let me tell you, it feels very much when you said that, like your keyboard repairs that we've chatted about.
Yeah.
It was a little bit of a lot of things.
Yes. Yeah, I learned in those 2 500 keyboard repairs, yours and mine, just like, why is it not doing this? And it's that experience and the journey of how do we figure out what is the part that's our problem? Can we replace it? Can we fix it? What are our choices? And you're going to get a lot of that. I really do.
It'll be a fun time. So it's a blessing and a curse, but it's also incredibly fun. I think once I'm done with this 64, I may have gone through all my 64s at this point. I may have everyone tested and then hopefully everyone repaired. And we'll see where that goes. And then that's going to lead me to the VIC-20s, the app. I think I'll go Apple before I go VIC-20s. I got to get those apples out of here.
You got to do something with those apples.
I got to get them out of here. I did reach out to the gentleman I had met at the place I picked it all up at. He's part of the VCF Southwest here. Awesome. I lost his contact details. And then I remember him telling me that he's one of the guys that kind of gets things scheduled and done. Maybe not the showrunner. Maybe he is the showrunner because that's how I found him. I'm stalking through VCF Southwest until I go, that's the guy. Because, I click on someone's name, I look at their profile picture, and I messaged him and said, hey, do you remember me? You were wanting to pick up one of these machines and one of these monitors. Finally, at this point of getting through this, are you still open? And let's talk after VCF Southwest, because I know you're going to be incredibly busy. And he said, you're right. I am incredibly busy. Let's talk later. So at least I got my first contact started, and that will let me get some of my first things out of here. Maybe also help me with the reputation online, because that's important too.
Oh, it's huge.
If you're selling in the group, people want to know someone knows who you are and
Right.
that kind of jazz, and that you're a pretty straightforward person. I know it'd been almost a year since he and I had talked, but I think that's pretty common in this industry too, that we go, yeah, we'll get to that. And then a year later, someone says, hey, I just got to it.
Right. I mean, I'm doing that. I still have, I don't know, I went on that buying spree and I still have all kinds of machines to go look at. So yeah, your life changes and you got to go, you'll get there. You'll get there. I have confidence in you. So
now that I'm feeling completely overwhelmed by my projects, what have you been nailing? What have you been knocking out?
Well, it's always a good feeling when you actually get to fix something. So you'll have this experience at some point with your Salvation 64. I don't know when, but it will come. I went on a much smaller scale project. I was looking as we were getting your Amiga together. I found a couple of the tank mouses. You inherited one of them, or got inherited. But
why do you call them a tank mouse?
Because that's what they're called. They look like a little tank. If you look at the mouse, the Amiga mouse, that square brick, it looks like a small tank, especially from that period in video games. So they call it a tank mouse.
Okay.
So I was working on one of mine. I plugged one in for you. And like, oh, it kind of moves around. It's dirty. The buttons don't work. Good luck. And that's what you got when I gave you that 500. I have another one that I looked at that the little ball piece wouldn't come out, but the thing wouldn't spin, and my buttons were intermittent. Okay, great. So I took all the screws out, great, and lifted the top cover off, and it got two more screws inside, got the board out. Looks like someone spilled something on the table and it sat in it, so there's all kinds of sticky stuff. And so I finally, it didn't go up too far, just was enough so I couldn't get the ball mouse out. So a lot of IPA later and a lot of Q-tips later and some force for now I could actually get in from the top and the bottom. I got this thing to move because it's that circular movement. Cleaned all that up. It's great now. It works perfectly. Cleaned up the rollers, cleaned up the ball. That part all worked great. My buttons were having issues. It's like they kind of clicked, they kind of didn't. And what's great, or good or bad, the little buttons are still made. So I ended up going to Micro Center and buying this little kit of a whole bunch of different size buttons.
What?
Yeah, it was like, I don't know, it was like under $10. So I have a whole container of little buttons. I needed 2. So for me, I used 6mm by 6mm by 4.3mm buttons. And there was a simple fix. You use that Hacko, desolder off the other buttons.
Hacko for the rescue.
That thing's amazing. When you're desoldering, recommend adding a little bit of solder first. Use it with a soldering iron or with a Hacko. You got to get stuff flowing again. Because some of the solder is like concrete after a while and it just doesn't want to come out. So you got to apply some new stuff and get the whole solder to flow, and then the Hacko will just flow right out. Yeah. So that definitely add some solder to get it flowing, then it'll come out right out with the Hacko. It's great. Pop those 2 buttons out. There are 4 legs on each button. Put the new ones in, resoldered them back in. Mouse works like it did before. It still has the hard mouse button click. So if you're used to a new mouse, which is like a nice easy click, this is not it. Those are micro switch buttons. These are the original buttons of the mice back then, and you're putting some force on them to make them work. And
like an Arduino project or a Raspberry Pi button.
Yes.
You're talking about like the ones you would put on the breadboard and you go.
Yes, that's what's inside these mice.
Wow.
So that's what you're using. I did find some people putting these little micro switches in there instead of these. I didn't do that with this mouse. This is that mouse. Yeah. I have some adapters that I can plug in USB mice. And I use those most of the time on my Amigas because they're laser, they just work, and the buttons are easier. It's not as authentic. I have a couple of authentic mice that work, but I want easier usability. Like even my 2000 Uh, I have a keyboard. I'm running a Dell keyboard on it most of the time. The biggest deal is the control buttons in that bottom left corner, and the Amiga has it up one to like where your caps lock key is, and I always hit the wrong stupid button if I'm not using a modern keyboard. Now, my 4000 behind me, I am using an Amiga keyboard, but I'm still sometimes hit a blank spot on my keyboard where I think the control button should be, and it's not.
I do that on the bread bins. Like things aren't in the same spots.
Yes.
You know, and so it's like you want to go to a dollar sign. It's not. I think dollar sign is one of them. The dollar sign isn't in the right dollar sign spot compared to what I've been doing for the last 20 years of my life.
Oh, that's fun. I didn't realize that they moved some of those symbols around, but I'm not surprised. That's just, as modern technology, it's amazing how things slowly morph over time and there's a new standard. And back then, all these machines had very different standards. Each one was different.
Oh, by the way, I totally used the wrong example. The dollar sign is where the dollar sign is. But like the @ sign's on 2, and the @ sign's its own key, and there's other keys. So, dear listener, I just wanted to correct myself. So I turned around and looked at my retro gear behind me, and that helped me find the right answer.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's just a lot of the stuff's changed. I think the Amiga has more of a modern keyboard layout, with an exception of that control buttons in a different spot for the most part. And it's got a couple other, it only goes to F10 and has some other buttons. They have a help and a delete button in its own area. So, but that was kind of a neat project. I spent about a half a day getting that all together. So with that, that's some stuff on my, I used some of that Hacko and got the buttons on my bench. What do you got going on your bench?
No projects on repairs, but I love that Hacko desoldering so much when I was making that video. And by the way, Ryan, that's where I messed up. I forgot to flow the solder first before I tried to take that chip out. I had to desolder it like 3 times. And I wasn't too sure if it was me or if it was, bet you it was that concrete solder. Now that you mention it, it was and the Hacko got it. And if I would have been better, I probably could have got it the first time, because this was my first real chip removal, not me practicing. Oh, right. It was like my first real one. I love the Hacko so much. My Amazon from China soldering station started having a problem holding its temperature. I think I called you and said, does your soldering iron ever dip? And you're like, no, dude, mine stays like on the money. And I'm like, okay, mine started dipping.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I picked up the Hacko soldering iron.
Okay.
So far, I don't know what I'm doing. I made an unboxing video. I followed the directions. I can't seem to access the presets. I can't seem to change it from Fahrenheit to Celsius. I'm holding the button the way I think they tell me to hold the button in the manual. So like everything, I'm going to have to go watch a YouTube of someone who knows how to use their Hacko for me to understand how to use my Hacko, because I can't follow basic instructions. But
that's funny. And I can't help you because I don't have their soldering iron. I have a Weller soldering iron that I picked up here when I was first starting and went, hey, this is great. And then went down that line from the soldering iron. So I don't know how the Hacko one works. I think you have a less of a buttons on yours than I do.
That's 2. I got 2 buttons. I got like an up button and an adjust. I got an adjust and a button, something like that. Okay. So it's only 2 buttons. I miss having my little scroll wheel. My cheap unit just had a little scroll wheel to get your temperature. You just kind of went, left and right, like a radio station tuning. And I like that scroll wheel. That was kind of nice. But with this one having presets, I may not ever need to do that.
You may not. I have little up and down arrow buttons on mine. So if I want it hotter, I hit up. I want it cooler, I hit down.
And honestly, how many different temperatures do we run at? It's just one temperature, really. So, you know what I mean?
I've used about 2 or 3 at this point.
Yeah.
So if I'm doing big stuff on the board, I'll go a little bit hotter. If I'm doing really delicate stuff right down by the chips, I'll run cooler.
And your cooler is like 300 degrees Celsius? Or you go below that?
Even might go below. I might hit 280 sometimes. Okay. Solder melts around 255. So it depends on how delicate I want to be, because I've accidentally burned a trace off the board because I've had it too hot.
That hurts.
So yeah, that hurt quite a bit. So I've become, unfortunately, have worked into that, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I'll remember that as I'm doing some of my stuff, especially like putting all those sockets on. That's where it's going to get its workout, is putting all those sockets in and hitting each one of those, and hitting them with that. A little flux, a little bit of this, hopefully just a boop and done. You know what I mean? Kind of a touch and go. But I really like the looks of this iron. It's just straightforward. It's very simple. The base unit, the holder unit are two separate units. I'm trying to work where it's going to be on my bench, but I'm happy to bring it in. I'm happy to have the new one. I'm going to keep the old one around too for, how you got to sometimes desolder the shields from the bottom of the boards.
mm-hmm.
That might be where I use just my crap one, right? Just turn it up high, hit that, get those things pried off, and use an iron I don't care about for doing some of that. So I'm going to keep the old one around just for, maybe something like that where I'm like, okay, I'm going to abuse this a little bit. Let's not abuse my good one. Let's abuse
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. There's always, if you mess up a tip, you just go buy another tip.
And I copied you on buying the exact same oscilloscope you told me about. So nice. That's another addition to my bench. Dear listener, Ryan shared me the oscilloscope he was about to buy. And I went, I think I might buy one too. And so that showed up just yesterday. I just got it. Perfect. The Team U special, or not Team U, the AliExpress special. Yes.
Right. I got mine. I played with it a little bit from a voltage continuity test perspective. Mine's a little slower. I don't know how to use all of it yet.
No, I have no idea.
So mine has taken a few extra seconds when you hit the two ends together for continuity testing for it to show up, and I've yet to figure out how to get the tone to work. Where my other one works better, and I have not tried the oscilloscope feature yet.
Well, you remember that little oscilloscope I built from HackerBox, right? It was a much smaller one.
Yes.
It did have a kit that came with it that you soldered together that you could create different waves. And so it's kind of like almost a control unit that, if you press this button and this button, you're going to get a sine wave. And then you hook your leads up and you can see that sine wave. So I at least have a control unit I need to go build that I can test with this and learn about what I'm seeing and what, doing something on purpose and seeing the results on my oscilloscope.
I look forward to seeing that because I want to know how to use it. This oscilloscope I know will only hit up to 50 megahertz, which is anything that I'm doing from Amiga land for the most part is going to be 50 megahertz or less.
Right.
There's some things that have 50 megahertz in it. There's a couple things that can do a little more. Some of the higher end accelerators on the Amiga side. So I just kind of did that. For you in 64 land, you're way fine.
Yeah. Even the little one I made maybe could have been fine for a lot of the things. But now that I'm starting this 8-bit to 16-bit adventure, I said, you know what? Let me just get this other one. And it wasn't super money. I mean, this was a very affordable unit.
It was super cheap. I guess I've seen some reviews on it. They rate it as a beginner oscilloscope. Perfect. It has some problems. If you're looking for some high-end thing, this isn't it. No. But if you've never used an oscilloscope before, you need some basic. I want to know if my pins am I doing high-low? Is some pin stuck in high? That's what all I really want to use this thing for. I don't really know what to do with it outside of that.
The little I've seen them do, Adrian, 8-bit, blah, 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 Jan Beta, they'll be like, okay, look, that is a video signal. They'll use their oscilloscope to say, okay, I have a video signal here. Oh, look, there's clock sync. Oh, I see I have clock sync. They know what pins to touch to see, and they know what it should be. And that's what I'm going to try and do is watch one of their videos like that and then just replicate it and do it on one of my good boards. So I know I'm getting a good signal. I know this unit doesn't have an issue. And practice for when I go to something I'm trying to troubleshoot, I'll have a little bit of info. But I don't know, neat little pickup. I thought it was a neat looking box. It even came with a little charge on it. It does have its own internal battery, so that's kind of nice. I don't have to plug it into anything.
No, it's a nice little handheld unit. It came in a little bag. It has a nice little travel bag.
Yeah.
Really kind of impressed.
I was very glad when you shared that, because I was like, gosh, I kind of want one, and I was about to start using my little one on the Commodore, and I think
Okay.
it had enough room. I think it was I can't remember what it was. I don't remember, but I'm going to look it up. And while I look it up so I can remember what it was, how about you wrap us up with a project?
So this is a project I'd done a little while ago. Luckily, I did not need an oscilloscope for it, but this is the one that I did, sadly, nuke a trace on the board with too hot of an iron. That was my fault.
Oh, no.
Yes, this is it. I have done some refurbishment. I have a 4000 desktop that I'd gotten as part of a collection of machines. It definitely had some battery damage. Unfortunately, for those that are familiar with or are not familiar with the 4000D, which is their desktop, there's a rechargeable battery on the board. The Varda battery, which is the killer of Amigas for the most part, that battery's on in a vast majority of the Amiga machines. It does leak. These 30-year-old batteries are dripping some acid. That battery, unfortunately, is located just left of the SIM sockets and just right of the clock circuit, for the clock being real-time clock on the Amiga. Luckily, the Amiga itself, that first chip right there, is a common chip that's still made. It's some, I don't know what it is, a gateway, or I don't know, some little common chip. So I tried to remove the chip off the board, but with that acid damage there, and I had the temperature too high, I accidentally lifted the trace up off the board.
Oh, no.
That was pretty terrible. It sucked. That whole thing was a mess. I ended up cutting that chip off the board and then cleaning up what was left and putting down the leads that were on it on the sockets, but then I had to actually solder bodge wires from all the traces some were destroyed from the acid. At least one was destroyed from me. So I bodge wired. Unfortunately, I needed 5 different bodge wires to go to different places, but it does work now.
Amazing.
It's amazing. It was a big cleanup effort, a lot of work. Unfortunate. I felt terrified when I lifted up those traces, like, oh my God, I just destroyed this thing. And I was not happy. Not at all. I was like, oh God, what did I do? But I got some, vinegar in there, put on top of that acid, a lot of IPA, got a lot of green crap up off the board, followed a lot of traces, cleaned up a lot of stuff. I did not pull up the SIM sockets and go cleaning underneath there. There's possibility that's going to be problematic. So these are some machines I may end up having to go back into and looking down in between the SIM sockets, seeing if there's any trace damage. And if there is, I'm going to have to probably go lift the sockets and go clean underneath there and put sockets back in. Which I'm not looking forward to.
Is this one that you worked a little bit with, like, Chris Edwards on?
I did. Yeah, he was amazing. He actually sent me some parts. Like, oh, you'll need this, this, and this, and he mailed me a little care package. So I was super happy with that. He wants Amigas to be saved. That is his goal. And he helped a lot and gave me a lot of pointers and guidance. And I originally put a bodge wire in that the wire was too big. And he's like, that's way too big. And he told me what to go get. And that's where I got the Sally Hansen nail polish from, because he uses that. It's cheap, it's easy, and you're just trying to cover the stuff up so it's not oxidizing.
That's right.
And it was great. This was on my bench for 2 months, probably.
Oh, I was going to say months. 100%. I was going to say months. This is yours, Salvation 64.
Yes.
This is your version of what I'm about to get into.
Yeah, it was a mess. And I did 2 4000Ds back to back. Oh. So I got that lot had 2 of them. The first one it had some battery damage, but not as bad. It was easier to clean up. I didn't have any of these issues. This one had way more problems. And even the first one sat on my bench for a while between work and everything else. It just takes time. This stuff is just, it's a time consuming hobby. I don't want to rush it. I don't want to accidentally do anything with it. I don't have any hot air, to remove chips because all those 4000s are all surface mount. So getting some of these chips up is a hot air project to tape around and try and heat up the stuff to pop the sim or the chips. And I don't have a hot air station and haven't done any of that. So that's a whole nother thing. I'm like, oh, I hope I don't have to do this. I hope I don't have to do this. I hope I don't have to do this. And that's when I tried to hit each of the pins off the chip and try to get it up without hot air. And that was a mistake. That was oh my God, what have I done? So it was definitely the, oh my God, what have I done? I don't believe I did that.
And one day it sounds like you might need to get a hot air station though.
I think I'm going to have to. So far I haven't. The 4000s are surface mounted and a 1200 I have is surface mounted. I have done recaps of all three of those machines, and you can do the recaps without the hot air. You can use a normal fine tip pin, and I've done that with all three of these machines. All of the other Amigas are through hole, so you don't need hot air for that.
Okay.
So the 2000s, 3000s, 500s, 1000.
That makes it a lot easier. Just like what I'm working.
Yeah.
When I was watching some desoldering videos on the retro equipment, there are a few people that will hacko, they'll use all their desoldering, and then they'll have a hot air gun and then just go and just let the chip kind of, because there's always a little bit of solder, it seems, holding your chip in place. And so they can just kind of hot air it, just and the chip just falls right into their hands. You know what I mean? Just like they need it.
Yep, and that's a lot of them. They're taping around to dissipate the
Capcom.
The orange tape.
I think it's Capcom, right? I think it's Capcom tape.
I think so. And then they're hot airing it in a circle, and they have this other little pry bar kind of thing that they're just lifting underneath it a little bit, so when it gets warm enough, it'll flip up and go up over, and you're good to go. And I've watched like Chris Edwards do repairing some 4000s where he's popping off the custom chips because he doesn't know which one's bad, and then he's putting them back on in sockets.
I've seen
sockets back on this. Like, I wish they were all socketed.
I know. I know. I've been lucky that I've had socketed boards until this one, and then because I've heard people say, "Oh, this one has no sockets. Oh, this one does."
Right.
And I don't know why their decision process was around there. I don't think none of us understand why their decision process was that way.
Cheaper.
Yeah.
I've watched several things that if you're saving 3-5 cents a machine and you're selling 5 million of them, that's real money.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
And their life expectancy of these things is 5 years.
Yeah.
So they're going to work 5 years. So who cares? It's all about cost.
And now they work 40 years. we talked about that before. It blows my mind, man.
Yes.
We recapped about VCF East having conversations of what are retro people going to do 40 years from now? Because that means they have to have like fake servers up for iPhones to be able to work with.
Yes.
And, and how are they going to get away with that? Because all the security that's involved.
I have no idea. Like, I just started playing a game. I have a game on my iPad that I play, and I haven't played it in a while. I just brought it up, and they're like, "Yep, our back-end server stuff's gone. The provider we use doesn't exist anymore. We're just unlocking all the cards for you. Have fun."
Oh, have fun!
And it's like you can still play online through that infrastructure, but the quest thing where you would play so much that you get gold, and then you get to go buy another card. So it really didn't have an extra cost to you, but except for time, because you actually had a quest to go do. They're like, yeah, we can't do that anymore. Sorry. Here, you get them all.
Now I'm looking because we're about to go off on a tangent, right? Because I'm looking here. I remember the Stranger Things game that was on. Okay, here it is. 2 years ago on Reddit. What happened to the Stranger Things iOS game? I can't find it anymore. That's another thing that happens. With Eli and his software sales, we can go buy new old stock, and it's still
Yeah.
the game it was. No one has the availability of getting rid of all the Red Storm Risings in the world that are on diskette. They're out there.
Yes.
Well, Stranger Things iOS game disappeared. I remember playing it. I went back to go play it again. I'm like, where did it go? I need to finish this article. But that was part of this retro thing too, that people just take things down and go, we're done.
Look how many game systems don't have physical media anymore, or it was an option. I think a PS5 by default does not come with an optical drive. So there's no way to put it to get a game disc. And even when you do get a game disc, what do you do after you install one of these? You spend like 4 hours downloading 22 gigs of updates.
100%. 100%. That is exactly right. I love VR, and I have no physical media. When Meta goes out of business and my Oculus goes bad, I'm just out all that money. I've never been able to play it again. It's just, it's very transactional, is what it is.
Exactly. Like the 3DS online stores dead from Nintendo, in the Wii and the Wii U store. So you can't buy anything new for it. Even if you wanted to, you can. They are still up enough that if you had bought something in your accounts link, they'll let you re-download it for now. But that's going to go away at some point. So if you don't have that cartridge, and even on the 3DS, some of those had updates, and there were these little update packages that came with it. So those are things that you may or may not be able to get. Or there's a DLC that got updated, so you may not be able to get that anymore. And it's just, unfortunately, that stuff's going away, and it's a different model.
Wow.
Good, bad, or other.
This was unscripted, and we ended up in a rabbit hole of
yes, we did.
Things that hopefully you're probably upset about too, or not upset. No one's really upset. It's just some changes are changes. Maybe we just got to roll with them, and some you go, oh, it's kind of nice that I can have a Kickman cartridge, and it's the same as it was when it was, and Congo Bongo or whatever games from back then. You can just have it own, and somewhere between PS2. PS3, things started really getting online. PS3, PS4, and I remember when you could start buying them without drives in them because they were web units, and it was like, oh, here's the end of the end on physical media. Because again, it's all about making money too. If they can sell a game without ever producing a disc, that's a cost they don't need.
Oh, 100%. So it's all. It's part of the thing that you need to pay attention to. Is that the product for you? Is it not? And then you just go with it, because at this point, it's like, it is what it is, right? Yep. So if I want to go do that thing, this is my cost of entry, and that's okay. And I'm totally on board with it.
All right, brother. I think we've brought another one to the finish line. What do you think?
I think so as well. Thank you all for coming along to our finish line, and we'll be looking for you at the next race.
Go check out those links and go check out Chris Edwards. He's a pretty great guy. Talk soon. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.